Okay, today's project is my garage doors. I have two garage doors. I would like to paint them, but when I went to get ready to paint them, I noticed that there's this crack, about a half an inch, between my driveway and the basement floor, the garage floor, I should say. And the house was built in 1984, about over 35 years ago. And I have had this driveway replaced maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20, I can't remember exactly. Maybe 15, let's say. Now, what's happened is, it's pulled away from here. I've never seal coated it, which I probably should. But what was happening is this crack would, as you imagine, was filled with dirt, and weeds were growing up. Now what happened is, when it rains, the bottom rail on this would just be coated with dirt, and then moss and what have you, mildew. Okay, all of the dirty stuff would start growing. So instead of just said I'm going to paint, I said, okay, what can I do about this? This doesn't look good. Okay, so I looked online and I found some various other YouTube videos where people had done something about this. And first thing I did was I used a screwdriver. I got all the dirt out, down to a couple of inches, the length of a screwdriver blade, more or less. Just kind of using it like this. I just kind of went along. Okay, I vacuumed it up. I swept it away. I filled the bottom of the trench with dirt. Not dirt, sand. Some sand I had. I had some sand here, basically left over from who knows what. Okay, then the idea is to put in this backer rod. The reason of the backer rod is to make a floor, because the thing I'm going to fill it with is self-leveling. It's like a liquid. I looked at the reviews, and this one got good reviews on Amazon. I bought it at Lowe's for about $9 a tube. It's relatively expensive. For the 20 feet that I'll need, I actually bought 12 tubes. I'm hoping I only use about 6. And I can bring back the other ones. So we'll see how this goes. The temperature right now is 50 degrees, and that is the minimum temperature range of this. It says store it at 65. Apply it at 50 or above. Okay. Now I haven't quite finished. I was just going to show you a little bit here. I'm not quite finished putting the backer rod in. I basically have been, pushing it down. I stopped just short here. You can see the sand down there. Okay. I pushed the backer rod in there. Backer rod came in a 20-foot length, and that was just about exactly what's needed. So what I'm going to do is I'll finish this up, poke it in. Then I'll start applying the self-leveling compound, and we'll see how this goes. Oh, let me say this. I have in the past replaced this garage door trim. I replaced 3 pieces. This trim piece, this trim piece, this trim piece. The originals, as you might imagine, I believe were rotted at the bottom. So this, I believe, is cedar, okay? And you can see that I measured it almost to length to touch the concrete. I don't know if that's a great idea. When I went to set up for this project, I actually cut off about 1/2 inch of the bottom of these trim pieces, okay? The way I did it was, I'll show you right here. I used something that had a thickness of about 1/2 inch. I used a saw, in this case a finish saw. You can use different saws. And I cut off the bottom of it. The reason is, I want to treat the bottom end grain of this. As you can see, what happened was that I put it on here And then it was cedar. I was hoping it would be rot resistant, which it has been because it's been on here for, oh, probably, possibly 15 years or more. And it hasn't really rotted. The bottom, you know, did soak up water, but only to a small extent. So it has been pretty good, but I wasn't happy with it sitting flush on the driveway. My plan now is to treat it with some of this wood hardener, and then paint it up, and then possibly caulk underneath it. I don't like the idea of the end grain just sitting on the garage, on the driveway. Now I will say this: while I was cutting, I also cut off the bottom piece of this trim board. This is the original trim board on the house. It was basically clobbered right down to the driveway. This is not the original driveway, but I remember even the original driveway before this was added, it was basically right down to the driveway. That hardly seems to make sense to me. So I did the same thing. I just cut that off. And I'm hoping that I can treat it, which is cedar, so it doesn't really need it so much. It's not really rotted, even though it's been wet, very wet, obviously, for a long, long time. And then I'm hoping maybe to caulk under there, but that's, anyway, for another day. Right now, I'm just going to be using the self-leveling sealant. I will use it continuously under this section, okay? So, this is supposed to go on it's like a liquid, and then it self-levels. It's supposed to fill up in this cavity, so I'll hit pause, and I will start applying the sealant, and let's see how that goes. Okay, that's one tube. I just stopped at one tube. It went about 3 feet. I got a little bit sloppy, but it does come out like a liquid. I could fill it a little bit higher, but I wanted to get at least 2 feet out of each tube so I wouldn't run out. It's not, you know, it's not flush with this, but it fills most of the gap. I should be able to put more in on top of it if I have, so I can just keep going until I get all the way to the end. Okay, that's after 2 tubes. About 3/4 of the way across the first bay. I have been putting it in a little bit thicker here. They say to leave the tip underneath in the crack under the level. So the idea is if you put it on the top, you might get a bubble. Air could get trapped in. So I've been laying the tip on the bottom and dragging it across, squeezing it out. It's easier on my grip that way too if I don't have to hold the gun up. I just let it sit down in the crack. Okay, on for tube 3. Okay, I just finished the 3rd tube, and I still haven't finished the first bay here because I realized I had enough to finish, so I went back over and put it on a little bit thicker on the first section, okay? I thought I might as well try to bring it up as close to flush, and that way I'll have fewer tubes to bring back. It'll cost more, but maybe it'll last longer, I don't know. On to tube 4. Okay, I finished the 4th tube. I started filling in under there. There's not really so much of a gap between the foundation and the asphalt there. It's just that the asphalt dips down towards the concrete, so it does have a trench there for that to fill into. So I just started putting it in there. I figure it won't do any harm. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next bay with tube 5. Okay, I finished the 5th tube. I'm about 20% on the 2nd bay. Here, the asphalt drops off a little bit more from the concrete, so it's pouring more down into the driveway over on the other side. It was more of a natural channel for it to fit into, but hopefully it'll still be okay there. Okay, I just finished the 6th tube and I'm halfway across The second bay seems to be going okay. Okay, I'm about 3/4 of the way across the second bay, and then I still have to do about a foot on either end that's not in front of the garage door. I've been saving that to the end because what's in front of the garage door is the most important. It looks like it's going to take about 10 tubes for this total job. So far I've done 7. Okay, that's the 8th tube. I have finished under the second bay. And now I need to do this gap beside the driveway where I've also inserted the backer rod. Okay, I finished. I used the 9th tube, and with the 9th tube I was able to finish both of the sections on the end. That's $9 a tube. That's $81. It's kind of expensive. I put a little extra in there. It's supposed to self-level. But anyway, I just put it in. And it is getting colder now. It's probably just at 50, which is the limit. So I hope it does hold. I will say that the procedure I used, I put sand in the bottom of the trench first before I put the backer rod in, but what happens is the sand was a little bit moist, so there's some sand, you know, above where the backer rod was. So I tried vacuuming it or sweeping it, but it won't really move because it's probably because there's moisture in it, and so that sand gets involved with the caulk, and you'd like to have it not there so it wouldn't be, you know, a barrier to sealing in the asphalt. You'd like to think that it was, because, you know, the surfaces should be clean, free of dirt or dust or what have you. Now I'm going to try to cover this over, probably with a board or something that won't stick to it, because I noticed the leaves are already falling down and getting trapped and what have you, and this will take several hours probably to skim over. So that's the deal. It seemed to go on okay. I hope it works. Thanks, bye.